I always knew summer had a way of shaking things up, but I didn't expect it to start with a rebound that bounced straight into my neighbor's chest. It was late June, and the sun had already kissed the pavement enough times to leave it sweating. I was shirtless in the driveway, dribbling a slightly deflated basketball, the sound of rubber slapping concrete echoing against the quiet street. I didn't hear his footsteps until he was already close enough for my heart to trip over itself. "Nice. Form," a voice called behind me, easy and teasing. I turned and saw Evan leaning on the fence between our yards, one elbow resting on the top rail like he had all the time in the world. I smiled, maybe a little too quickly. "Jealous?" He shrugged, that crooked grin playing at the corner of his mouth. "Just impressed you haven't tripped over your own feet yet." That was Evan, effortlessly confident, laid back, and devastating in a way that felt completely unintentional. He moved into the house next door last summer, right after his parents' divorce. We were both 19 now, but where I tended to keep to myself, Evan had a way of making every space feel like home, including mine. We'd spent most of the past year in casual proximity, borrowing tools, sharing snacks over the fence, watching the occasional game on his back porch. But lately, I'd started noticing the way his laugh settled deep in my chest, or how my thoughts would drift to him when I should have been focused on literally anything else. It wasn't like I meant to stare when he wiped sweat from his brow or lounged shirtless in a lawn chair, but it kept happening. And every time it did, I told myself it didn't mean anything. Still, it was getting harder to convince myself of that. "Wanna play?" I asked, before I could overthink it. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Evan hopped the fence with practiced ease, landing beside me with a casual thud. "Only if you're okay with losing. You wish." He laughed, and grabbed the ball from my hands with a quick spin, his fingers brushing mine for just a second, long enough to send a pulse of electricity up my arm. He didn't notice, or if he did, he didn't show it. We started shooting around, and even though it was just the two of us, the air felt different, charged. There was something about the way his eyes lingered a little too long, or how our fingers brushed again when we both reached for the ball. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was wishful thinking. Or maybe something was starting to shift between us, something I hadn't dared to name. And I had a feeling that by the end of the day, things between Evan and me wouldn't be the same anymore. Evan wasn't just my neighbor. He was the guy who made the quiet parts of life feel less quiet. When he moved in last summer, I hadn't expected much. He'd shown up with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder and a smirk that said he didn't take anything too seriously. I was trimming the hedges when his mom waved across the yard and introduced us. Evan nodded once and said, "Guess we're stuck with each other now," like it was some sort of inside joke I didn't know the punchline to yet. But we clicked fast. I was used to keeping people at arm's length, and Evan never met an arm's length he couldn't cross. It started with small things, him borrowing my air pump for his bike, me asking if he had an extra charger when mine shorted out. Before long, we were playing basketball in the evenings, binging terrible action movies on his back porch, and sharing leftover pizza slices like it was some unspoken ritual. "You still eat the crust first?" he asked today after sinking a clean shot from the free throw line. I rolled my eyes. "Some of us appreciate fine cuisine." "Uh-huh. You just like being weird," says the guy who dips fries in ice cream. "That's just being cultured." I laughed and stole the ball from him when he wasn't looking, dribbling backward. "You're so full of—" And then the sky opened up. One second it was sunny, the next, clouds rolled in like someone had hit fast forward. A fat drop of rain smacked me on the nose, then another. Evan looked up. Well, that's new. Within seconds we were soaked. The rain came down hard, turning the driveway slick. I slipped mid-pivot, landing on my side with a dull thud. Evan rushed over, his hair dripping into his eyes, hand outstretched. "You okay?" I grabbed his hand, and he pulled me up, his palm warm even in the chill of the storm. We were close, closer than I meant to be, our faces just inches apart, breath mingling in the charged air. For a second, neither of us said anything. Then he cleared his throat and stepped back, running a hand through his wet hair. "Well, that was dramatic." "Yeah," I said, my voice hoarse. "Rain really knows how to make an entrance." We ran toward my garage, laughing like idiots, slipping as we went. The door thudded shut behind us, and I leaned back against the workbench, catching my breath. Evan tugged his soaked t-shirt over his head, wringing it out like it was the most normal thing in the world. I looked away too quickly, cheeks burning. "Guess the universe wanted us to take a break." "You think it's mad I was winning?" "In your dreams." He grinned and bumped his shoulder into mine. "You know, if this keeps up, we might have to make this a movie night." Movie night. That had become our thing. Sometimes at my place, sometimes his. A few sodas, a shared blanket when the AC got too cold, and the occasional shoulder accidentally brushing mine. I used to tell myself I was reading too much into it, that I was imagining the way his foot would sometimes stay pressed against mine, beneath the blanket for just a little too long. That the way he laughed at my dumbest jokes wasn't anything special. But lately, I'd started hoping I wasn't imagining it. That maybe Evan noticed those moments too. Outside, the rain came harder. I watched the drops race down the garage window and swallowed the urge to say something I wasn't ready to. Not yet. Instead, I looked at him, still shirtless, still standing. Way too close, and I said, "I've got popcorn inside. And that awful shark movie you like." His eyes lit up. "Sharknado? Best worst movie ever made. Let's go." As we headed into the house, I told myself it was just another movie night. But some part of me already knew this storm had changed something. By the time we got inside, my shirt clung to my skin like it was trying to hold me back. Evan towed off his wet sneakers by the door and looked around my small living room like he'd been here 1,000 times, which honestly, he had. "You still have that old blanket?" he asked, already heading toward the couch like he lived here. I nodded, peeling my soaked shirt over my head and tossing it into the laundry basket in the hallway. "Yeah, top shelf in the closet." He pulled it down. The old navy and gray flannel thing I'd had since middle school. It smelled faintly of fabric softener and summer. Evan flopped onto the couch, draping the blanket over his lap and patting the cushion next to him. "Come on. Sharknado waits for no one." I sat beside him, a careful space between us, trying not to think too hard about the water still dripping down his chest or the warmth radiating from his side. Outside, thunder cracked, the kind that made windows shiver. "I think that storm's gonna sit for a while," I said, flicking on the TV. Evan stretched, his arm grazing the back of the couch and brushing the back of my neck. Just briefly, just enough to make me feel like my skin had been rewired. "You afraid of storms?" he asked, half teasing. "No." My voice came out lower than I expected. "Just didn't expect the whole trapped inside thing. Could be worse." He smirked, eyes still on the screen. "You could be trapped with someone boring," I snorted. "Yeah, lucky me. We watched the movie for a while. If you could, call it watching." My eyes were on the screen, but my thoughts kept tripping over every shift in the couch cushions, every time our legs brushed, every quiet breath he took. I could smell the rain in his hair. I could feel the heat of him under the blanket we were now both sharing, even though we didn't talk about it. He didn't move away. I didn't either. And that silence between us, it wasn't awkward. It was loud in a different way, like something was waiting to be said. Halfway through the second shark attack, the power blinked off with a loud click. The screen went black. The room fell quiet, except for the thunder outside and the hum of our breathing. "Well," Evan said, voice a little softer. "Guess that's that," I laughed, nerves catching in my throat. You okay in the dark, or do I need to get you a nightlight? He nudged me with his knee under the blanket. You're the one with goosebumps. I wanted to say it was from the cold, but we both knew better. We sat in the dim light leaking in from the storm outside. I could just barely make out the shape of his jaw, the way his eyes looked at me even when he didn't say anything. Then he shifted again, closer this time, so our shoulders touched. You ever think about how weird this is? He asked suddenly. What, the movie? I asked, though I knew that wasn't what he meant. No, he said. I mean, this, us. My heart stopped, just for a second. What about it? He was quiet, thoughtful. Then, I don't know. You're the only person I hang out with like this. It just feels different, not in a bad way. I swallowed. Yeah. He looked at me then, really looked. The kind of look that didn't dart away like it was afraid of being caught. It held. My stomach flipped. I wanted to lean into him so badly it hurt. I wanted to press my face into his shoulder and tell him everything, that I couldn't stop thinking about him, that this wasn't just a weird summer friendship, that I didn't want him to be just a neighbor anymore. But I didn't move. I couldn't, because what if I ruined it? The rain kept falling, like the sky was waiting with us. Evan's hand shifted under the blanket. I felt his pinky graze mine, not a full touch, just a whisper of contact, but it sent my pulse into overdrive. Then, he didn't move it away. He let it stay there, warm, close. I like being here, he said, voice quiet. With you. I turned toward him slowly. I could barely see his face, but I could feel every inch of him beside me. You're not weirded out? I asked. My voice trembled. By, I don't know. How this feels. He didn't answer, right? Away, just breathed, thought. Then finally, softly, no, not weirded out. He shifted even closer. Our arms pressed fully now. My whole body felt like it was holding its breath. His voice, even lower now. Are you? No, I whispered. I'm just scared? I nodded. He must have seen it in the dark, or felt it. Me too, he said. I didn't know what to say, but I didn't have to, because that silence, that heavy, waiting silence, wasn't empty. It was full of everything we weren't ready to say, yet. The storm didn't let up. If anything, it grew louder, more insistent, rattling the windows like it was demanding we stop pretending. Evan's shoulder was still warm against mine. Our hands hadn't moved since that accidental, maybe not so accidental brush, beneath the blanket. His pinky was now looped loosely around mine, and neither of us had mentioned it. Outside, the rain carved silver streaks down the glass, tracing slow, uncertain paths. I felt like that, unsteady, pulled by something I couldn't name without risking everything. I swallowed hard. Hey, Evan. He didn't look at me, but I felt him go still. Yeah? Why did you say this feels different? For a second, all I heard was the storm. Then, because it does. You feel different to me, and I didn't think you noticed. I turned, needing to see his face. The dark made it hard, but there was enough of a glow from the porch light filtering in that I could make out the furrow between his brows, the way he bit at the inside of his cheek. I noticed, I said quietly. His eyes flicked to mine, and something passed between us. A fragile, terrified thing, but alive. Did you mean to hold my hand? I asked, voice barely audible. He hesitated, then gave the tiniest nod. Yeah. My heart beat so loud I was sure he could hear it. I think about it a lot, he added, like he was ripping off a bandage slowly. About us. Not just today, for a while now. But I never said anything because I didn't want to screw it up. I could feel every breath I took, Each one seemed louder than the last. I didn't say anything either, but I've been feeling it too. I just kept telling myself I was imagining it. You weren't. His voice cracked a little. God, you weren't. The blanket felt too hot suddenly, but I didn't move. I couldn't. I was afraid if I did, I'd lose the moment. He turned fully toward me, legs folding beneath him on the couch, like he needed to physically shift to keep going. It's not just about holding hands or sitting close. I look for you, you know? When something good happens, or when I need to feel okay. You're the first person I think of. Something lodged in my throat. I wanted to answer, but emotion came up like a tide. I didn't know if you felt the same, he said, but I was still drawn to you, and I hated the idea of messing it all up by saying the wrong thing. You didn't, I said, finally finding my voice. You're not messing anything up. He let out a shaky breath. Then just tell me, please. Say something. Because I'm standing right on the edge and I don't know what happens if I fall. I looked at him, really looked. He wasn't joking. He wasn't teasing like he usually did. His expression was wide open, every wall he'd ever kept up around. Me gone. I reached for his hand under the blanket, this time fully, intertwining our fingers. I feel it too, Evan. I've been trying to convince myself it wasn't real. That it was just me reading too much into things or hoping too much, but it's not. You make me feel like I can be more than I am. And yeah, I'm scared. But I don't want to keep pretending like nothing's happening between us. His shoulders fell, like he'd been holding himself up for so long and didn't realize how heavy it was. I like you, I said, a little breathless. Like really like you. Not just in a hey, let's hang out kind of way. In a I wake up thinking about you kind of way. He gave the smallest laugh, disbelieving maybe, but his eyes were soft. I think about you when I'm brushing my teeth, when I'm walking home from class, when I hear a stupid joke and wish you were there to hear it. I swallowed. That sounds like a crush. He smiled, tired and real. Yeah, big one. There was a pause then, the kind that makes everything still, and I realized I didn't want to wait anymore. Not with him, not if he felt this too. My voice came out in a whisper. Can I kiss you? He nodded once, quickly, like he was afraid if he didn't say yes fast enough I might change my mind. I leaned in, and for a heartbeat, it was just breath and closeness. His lips barely parted. My hand trembled where it held his. Then we kissed. It was soft, careful. The kind of kiss that asks, "Is this okay?" without saying anything. His hand rose to my face, thumb brushing just under my cheekbone like he was grounding himself. When we pulled back, the world hadn't ended, but something inside me had shifted, like a piece finally clicked into place. He kept his forehead against mine. You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that. Actually, I murmured. I think I do. We didn't move from the couch. Didn't even try. The rain had become background noise, a lullaby we weren't ready to wake up from. I didn't know this was possible, he said after a while. I didn't think we'd ever get here. We're here now, I said. That's what matters. His thumb traced slow circles against my hand. What happens now? We figure it out, I said, feeling steadier than I had all night. Together. He leaned in again, brushing his lips over my temple like it was second nature now. Okay. Together. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, my chest didn't feel tight. I wasn't holding back. Neither of us were. It was terrifying and perfect, and it was just the beginning. I don't know how long we stayed curled together on that couch, but time didn't seem to care. The storm had softened to a lazy drizzle outside, and the world felt quieter, like it was giving us space. Evan shifted beside me, resting his head against my shoulder, his breath warm through the cotton of my shirt. I could feel the shape of his smile even before he spoke. So, that happened. I let out a small laugh, brushing my thumb across his knuckles. Yeah, that definitely happened. There was a contented silence, and then he tilted his head back just enough to glance at me. I should probably say sorry for crashing your basketball game so hard. Oh, please, I teased, nudging his knee with mine. You think I didn't know what you were doing? Showing up shirtless and all? His eyes sparkled with mock offense. Excuse you, I live next door. I was just conveniently shirtless in my own yard. Right. Coincidence. I grinned, and he gave me a light shove that barely moved me. But he didn't let go of my hand. It was strange how quickly something that had felt impossible, terrifying, now felt natural. I wasn't used to this kind of ease. To knowing someone liked me back and being able to touch them without overthinking it to death. You're different when you're like this, I said quietly, not really sure what I meant until it left my mouth. Open. Real. He was quiet a moment, then said, I'm scared a lot of the time. That if I let people see the real stuff, they'll not want it. You didn't make me feel that way. My chest tightened, and I squeezed his hand. You don't have to be anything but yourself with me. I want the real stuff. He exhaled, like I'd said something he didn't know he needed to hear. Then he leaned up and pressed a soft kiss to my cheek, light but deliberate. When he pulled back, I didn't want the distance. So, what do we do now? He asked. Like in the daylight, when we're not hiding under a blanket during a thunderstorm? I thought about it for a second. We take it slow. We don't have to define everything tonight. We just keep being us, but more honest. And maybe less clothing? He added with a teasing grin. I gave him a look. You just want another excuse to steal my hoodies. They're warm and smell like you. It's science. I rolled my eyes, but my heart was beating harder in the best way. We should talk about what this means, though. Like, are we telling anyone? Or keeping it just us for now? He grew thoughtful, resting his chin on my shoulder again. I think I want it to be ours for a little while, just until I get used to not being scared of it. That's okay, I said, brushing my fingers through his hair. There's no rush. I'm not going anywhere. He looked up at me again, and this time his expression was unreadable for a moment. Then, softly, You really mean that? Don't you? Yeah, I whispered. I mean it. He kissed me again, this time a little longer, a little deeper. It wasn't desperate or rushed. It was warm, sure, confident. When we pulled back, he grinned. This might sound weird, but I feel lighter. It doesn't sound weird, I said. I feel it too. We stayed wrapped up in each other, the weight of everything we hadn't said finally gone. There were still questions, still fears, probably. But they didn't seem as big now that they weren't hiding between us. Outside, the storm had finally stopped. Inside, we were just getting started. By morning, the storm had passed, and sunlight spilled through the windows like an apology. The living room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ceiling fan and the occasional creak of the old house settling. I blinked awake slowly, momentarily, confused by the weight draped over my side, until I remembered everything. Evan, the confession, the kiss. His arm was still around me, our legs tangled beneath the throw blanket. He was warm against me, his face half buried in the crook of my neck, breath steady and calm. I watched him sleep for a few seconds longer, caught in that sweet moment of disbelief that something I'd wanted for so long was suddenly real. I didn't want to move, but my phone buzzed somewhere behind me, breaking the quiet. Evan stirred, groaning into my shoulder. Is it the apocalypse again? He mumbled sleepily. Nope, I said, grinning. Just a text from my mom asking if I want leftovers. He stretched and blinked up at me with messy hair and sleepy eyes. Yes, I'm officially your boyfriend, and I demand food offerings now. I froze. Boyfriend? Evan blinked, suddenly more awake. I just said that, didn't I? You did. I tried not to smile too hard, but it happened anyway. I like how it sounds. He gave me this boyish smirk, the kind I'd seen 1,000 times, only this time it was mine. Then it settled. Boyfriends who eat leftovers and steal hoodies. Bold of you to think you're getting more hoodies. Bold of you to think I won't just take one when you're not looking. I laughed, shaking my head as I reached for the hoodie draped over the back of the couch. I pulled it on, then, without thinking, tugged the sleeves over his hands too. He raised his brows. "You're sharing the hoodie?" he asked. I met his gaze and nodded. "We can share everything now. Kind of the point." The silence between us shifted, heavier, but not with tension, with something deeper, comfort. Promise. We sat on the porch steps 20 minutes later, sipping coffee from mismatched mugs. The world outside sparkled with fresh rain, leaves still dripping, pavement glistening. The basketball lay forgotten. In the damp grass, a remnant of the day before, of before everything changed. Evan bumped his knee gently against mine. "So you think we're ready for this?" I took a sip, watching the steam rise. "I don't know. But I'm not scared of trying. Not with you." He turned to me, quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Can I tell you something kind of dumb?" "Always." "That first day we met, when you moved in, I remember thinking your laugh was gonna mess me up." I choked on my coffee. "What?" He laughed too, a soft, embarrassed sound. "Yeah, I heard you laugh with your mom while carrying boxes, and I literally went, 'Shit, that guy's dangerous.'" I leaned my head on his shoulder, smiling like a fool. "And you've been pretending to be emotionally unavailable ever since." "Hey," he said, wrapping an arm around me. "I had a brand to maintain." We sat there in easy silence for a while, the kind that doesn't need filling. When I finally stood up to go back inside, Evan grabbed my wrist gently. "Wait," he said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a tiny, weathered keychain, a cracked basketball charm, old and faded. "Had this since high school. Dumb thing. But it used to remind me that I wanted to be part of something. A team. A life that meant something." I looked at it, then at him. He pressed it into my hand. "Now it reminds me of you." My chest felt too full to speak, so I just closed my hand around it and nodded. A small thing, but it meant everything.